Bernie Winter starts to uncover troubling truths about her son, Kit Green's past, in Coronation Street next week. Recent episodes of the ITV drama have revealed that Kit shares a hidden connection with the dangerous Mick Michaelis. Their shared history will soon come to light in a unique flashback installment. This special episode will transport viewers back to 2007, shedding light on pivotal moments in Kit's life that contributed to the man he has become. Earlier this week, it was revealed that Kit and Mick aren't total strangers, as Kit had to confront Mick during an investigation into a violent incident. Despite the situation, Kit held back during the interrogation and ultimately let Mick walk away uncharged. Soon, Bernie becomes determined to get to the bottom of things. In a teaser clip, Kit is seen reminiscing as he stares at an old photograph of himself with his adoptive mother. While Bernie tries calling him, he ignores the incoming call. Undeterred, she boldly enters his flat without permission, sparking Kit's anger. Unfazed by his reaction, Bernie presses him for the truth, demanding to know why he defended Mick, and suspects it's connected to the snapshot she discovered of them as teens. A heated confrontation follows, but Bernie stands her ground, convinced that Mick is holding something over Kit. She soon comes to understand that Kit is deflecting, using anger as a shield to avoid confronting the deeper truth. Unwilling to let his guard down, Kit demands that she hand over his key and tells her to leave immediately. But something suggests Bernie isn't the type to walk away without a fight. Debbie breaks down in Coronation Street video as Abby reels. An emotional Debbie Webster nearly confides in Abby Webster about her dementia diagnosis in Coronation Street next week. Over recent months, fans of the ITV soap have watched Debbie experience troubling symptoms, hinting that something wasn't quite right. Eventually, she sought help at a private clinic, where the physician referred her to a neurologist for further evaluation, suspecting the early signs of dementia. Debbie's world was turned upside down when the specialist confirmed the fears and gently explained that there was currently no available treatment for the condition. Since receiving her diagnosis, Debbie has kept it under wraps, confiding only in her estranged half-brother Carl. Even Ronnie Bailey, her longtime partner, remains unaware. In upcoming episodes, Debbie finds herself at the Viaduct Bistro, turning to alcohol to cope in the aftermath of their breakup. She had made the painful decision to end things with Ronnie, not wanting him to feel obligated to care for her as her condition progresses. As preview clips reveal, she downs vodka after vodka while Abby looks on with growing concern. Their conversation soon shifts to Kevin Webster's recent cancer news, prompting Debbie to admit that she once had doubts about his relationship with Abby when it first began. Abby bursts into laughter when Debbie jokingly refers to her as a dodgy piece of work, but her amusement softens when Debbie adds that Kevin is lucky to have her by his side during such a tough time. As the emotions catch up with her, Debbie begins to sob, admitting she plans to keep drinking in hopes of forgetting, only to pause, struck by the weight of her own words. Sensing there's more beneath the surface, Abby gently presses her, and Debbie starts to reveal that she's been given some devastating news. Just as she's about to open up, Carl walks in, catching them in the middle of a heavy conversation. Will this interruption stop Debbie from finally telling Abby the truth? Killer Gary strikes again in Coronation Street as he grabs Broken Bottle in Fight. Mick Michaelis, thinking he could outsmart Gary Windus in Coronation Street, was always destined to backfire. Recently, Mick managed to worm his way into Gary's good graces, convincing him that purchasing the builder's yard was a smart business move, even though Maria Connor voiced serious concerns. Despite her warnings, Gary went ahead with the deal, and the two men have since entered a working partnership. But behind the scenes, Mick has been up to no good. He's taken a sinister interest in Liam, Maria's young and impressionable son, quickly identifying the boy's insecurities and using them to his advantage. Rather than guiding or mentoring him, Mick has begun targeting Liam with cruel tricks, pulling mean-spirited pranks at the yard, all under the guise of harmless fun. Wanting desperately to be accepted, Liam forces himself to laugh along, pretending everything's fine just to avoid being pushed further to the margins. But the tide begins to turn in upcoming scenes. Liam, fed up with being humiliated, decides to fight back in his own quiet way by sneaking a hefty dose of salt into Mick's tea, setting the stage for a small but satisfying act of rebellion. Sadly, Liam's small act of defiance doesn't go unnoticed, and Mick doesn't take it lightly. Furious after tasting the sabotage tea, Mick retaliates in a far more disturbing way. In a deeply unsettling move, he lures Liam into the tool shed at the yard, slams the door shut, and locks him inside. Trapped and terrified, the young boy can do nothing but shout for help, his cries echoing unanswered through the walls. The incident clearly leaves Liam shaken, and the trauma lingers. Later in the week, Mick casually orders him to run a simple errand, to pick up some bacon sandwiches. But Liam doesn't return. Overwhelmed and anxious, he hides out in the cafe, reluctant to go back to the yard or face Mick again. Fortunately, Gary and Maria come across Liam in the cafe, their instincts telling them something is terribly amiss. Concern fills their faces as they approach him, and after a few moments of gentle questioning, they manage to coax him into speaking. Liam hesitates at first, his anxiety palpable, but the warmth of his parents' concern finally breaks through his fear. With trembling hands and a shaky voice, he recounts the harrowing experience, how Mick trapped him in the tool shed, locking him inside without any regard for his safety. Gary and Maria's faces darken with fury as the weight of their son's words sinks in. Anger and disbelief flood their emotions. To think that someone they had trusted, someone Gary had even tried to work with, could be so cruel to their child is beyond infuriating. Their protective instincts surge to the forefront, and it's clear that Mick's actions have crossed a line they won't allow to be ignored. They vow to confront Mick, but first they must figure out how to help Liam feel safe again. Gary strides into the yard and sees Mick rummaging through the shed. He forcefully pushes him inside and secures the door, giving Mick a dose of his own treatment. After firing Mick, Gary is later confronted by him. Mick throws a punch, and as a scuffle breaks out, Gary seizes an empty bottle, ready to strike. Luckily, Kit intervenes, stepping between the two and commanding Gary to halt. But will Gary obey? As Gary stands face to face with Kit, torn between his fury and reason, the tension in the air is palpable. Will Gary heed Kit's warning, or will this explosive confrontation spiral out of control, leaving lasting consequences for everyone involved?